Hello, hello. Happy Friday, everyone. Hello, friends out there. Welcome to my Friday Facts Live series. I am Dr. Shayla Toombs-Withers, plant-based physician owner of Essence of Health Wellness Clinic and Coaching. As a physician, board certified in family medicine, obesity medicine, and with the certification in plant based nutrition, I teach motivated professionals how to achieve sustainable health and wellness with a mind body balance approach in an effort to prevent and reverse their chronic preventable health conditions. Now, if you've been tuning in to the Friday Facts live series, you know that our focus this month is on heart health because heart health awareness is celebrated in the month of February because this is the month of love and because heart disease is still the number one cause of death in the United States. Last week, we talked about stress and its impacts on our heart. And on the Essence of Health Tea Time podcast this past Tuesday, I released an episode with the tea on stress and self care. If you haven't listened already, go check it out this weekend and get even more tools from that episode on how to protect your heart. Now, on today's live discussion, we'll be chatting about sodium, salt, and our heart. Listen, I'm a Southern girl, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. So I totally get it when we have the need for wanting flavor with our meal, as many of generations have had some of their best memories that were surrounded by a good plate of food. But it's important to know that flavor does not have to equal salt. And there are other ways to flavor your food. And so the other part to that to know is that salt and sodium can have an impact on our heart. So let's dive in and discuss this. So here are the hard facts. Americans consume on average about 3,400 milligrams of sodium or salt each day. This is more than double the recommended amount of 1,500 milligrams or less that is ideal for our health. Think about how many potato chips, french fries, crackers that you may even consume in your day. And for my plant based eaters out there, yes, all of these foods are plant based, but they are not health foods due to their high amount of salt that they contain. Sodium is a mineral that can occur naturally in foods, or it can be added during the manufacturing of the food product. White table salt is actually comprised of about 40% sodium and 60% chloride, which is another mineral. Some foods that have naturally occurring sodium include celery, beets, and dairy milk. While sodium can be naturally occurring, when we consume it in excess, this is when we can impact our heart and have some detrimental effects. When you consume sodium, it goes into your bloodstream. And at that same time, it pulls water into your blood vessels along with that. Thereby, it'll increase the amount or the volume of blood inside of those vessels. Then, when this occurs, this can increase your blood pressure on those blood vessels due to that increased volume of blood that's flowing at that point. And so, this in turn makes the heart work harder to pump this blood and circulate it through our bodies. And over time, the heart muscle becomes enlarged and it gets weakened just from overuse. And this is what leads to heart disease. So let's think about where salt may be presenting itself in our lives. The American Heart Association, or AHA, produced a really good handout, and it's one that I want to share today. It's called Seven Salty Myths Busted. And we'll go through these seven myths and then I'll tell you a bit more. So, myth number one about salt is that you should eliminate sodium completely for good health. And this is a myth because sodium is an essential nutrient. It does help to control our blood pressure and it's needed to make our nerves and our muscles work properly. But you do need the right amount and not consume it in excess. And you can naturally find sodium in certain foods, like those foods that we talked about, and even sea vegetables like seaweed or kelp, for instance. Myth number two Sea salt has less sodium than table salt. This is a myth. Sea salt has, boomed in popularity. You probably, heard about a lot of celebrities talk about sea salt and even a lot of chefs to talk about, using sea salt. But reality is it isn't less salty than salt. It's just like table salt and typically contains about 40% sodium. Myth number three is when folks say, I usually don't salt my food, so I don't eat too much sodium. And so this is a myth. And what studies have shown is that more than 75% of sodium that Americans consume is estimated to come from processed foods and not from us just shaking more salt onto our plate. Think about the deli meats, hot dogs, bacon, um, sausages, and any of those other cured meats that you may consume. These foods are going to be high in salt content because it's utilized in the process of creating these food products. And then think about the canned foods you eat, as they also will often contain high amounts of sodium uh, as a preservation process. There are some things that will be labeled as salt free or low sodium that you may see in stores on your grocery shelf. But even in those instances, there still may be some salt added. Our USDA, that governs the way our foods are labeled, they just have certain limits upon which you have to label your food product as actually containing what is in it. And that's based upon the amount of that particular ingredient. So just because something says salt free or low sodium, that doesn't necessarily mean what you may think that says. So it's also, though, why it's important to be a label reader and to actually take note of those nutrition facts and the serving size for the food that you eat. Now, myth number four, high levels of sodium are found only in food. This is also a myth. There are some over the counter medications that contain high levels of sodium. You want to carefully read your drug labels and remember that some companies produce low sodium over the counter products. Some examples of those sodium containing over the counter meds include dissolvable pain relief medications like the rapid release acetaminophen, which actually contains about 400 milligrams of sodium. Some of those effervescent medications, like the kind that you drop the tablet in water and you see it bubble up when you take it, those contain about 476 milligrams of sodium. And so, if you took the recommended dose over the course of a day, your total sodium intake would be more than 3,000 milligrams for that day. And this is actually more than the recommended daily allowance of sodium guidelines that we get from the Food and Drug Administration. Um, and this would be you haven't even consumed any food yet, and you've already exceeded your daily sodium intake just from the medicines that you were taking. Now, for some over the counter medications, sodium is actually in the name of the drug, for example, naproxen sodium. So you just want to remember to carefully read the labels on the back of the packaging. Now, myth number five is that lower sodium foods have no taste. This is a myth. Like I said, I'm from the South, so I get it that we feel like salt has to be flavor, but there's a rich world of creative and flavorful alternatives to salt. So experiment with spices and herbs, citrus fruit, even to enhance the natural flavor of your food. Now, myth number six, my blood pressure is normal, so I don't need to worry about how much sodium I eat. This is also a myth. The American Heart Association recommends consuming less than 1,500 milligrams of sodium. And even for people who don't have high blood pressure, less sodium will significantly blunt that rise in your blood pressure that occurs as we age. And it'll also reduce the risk of developing other conditions like kidney disease, which is also associated with eating too much salt. Myth number seven, I don't eat a lot of salty food, so I don't eat too much salt. So this is a myth. Now, for my folks watching who may not be plant based eaters, you want to watch out for these culprits: pork, poultry or chicken, cheese, and bread, as these foods all contain an excess amount of sodium that can increase your risk for heart disease and stroke. For my plant-based eaters out there, like I said, we aren't safe either. You want to watch out for these culprits like vegan cheeses, prepackaged vegan meats, vegan hot dogs, those prepackaged vegan burgers, crackers, nuts, chips, because all of these foods too can contain a high amount of sodium. I always remind people to read the labels. Food labels can label sodium and salt with other names like monosodium glutamate or MSG. Like we said, sea salt can be, this trendy term, but it's still salt. Sodium nitrate, sodium citrate, sodium chloride, sodium phosphate, trisodium phosphate, Himalayan pink salt, and kosher salt. It's all salt, all sodium, all things that you want to be mindful and careful of. Now, in the Essence of Health signature coaching program, I teach you how to healthfully eat for sustainable health, wellness, and healthy weight management, utilizing a plant predominant diet and appropriate movement and mindset strategies incorporated to help you achieve your health goals. You can grab a copy of my free ebook for more health tips at essenceofhealth.link forward slash e hyphen book. And I invite you to learn more about me and Essence of Health Wellness Clinic and Coaching at eohcoaching.com. You can also tune in every Tuesday to my podcast, the Essence of Health Tea Time Podcast, on your favorite podcast app for all things health, wellness, and plant based nutrition. Or follow me on social media at Essence of Health Wellness Clinic on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Dr.TW at EOHWC on TikTok, and Shayla TW on LinkedIn. I look forward to working with you, and I offer a free strategy session so that we can chat one-on-one about how to help you achieve your health goals this year. Thank you for joining me for today's Friday Facts. Remember, the essence of health is in you.